boxing ring a little bit. Who's Welcome to the show, brother. How are you doing today?
I am great, man. And that was honestly the best introduction. I did not expect that as an introduction.
I love saying that. I love your name. Love your presence. So happy to have you here. I was wondering, something I've been thinking of since the retreat a couple months ago in January is like how you got to even Jack's retreat or to this point, or how your brain led you down this rabbit hole of curiosity with energy and all of the deeper things that you're learning. Like, what's kind of your path from a younger Hoos to a current Hoos?
Wow, that's also such a very good first question. I must take some inspiration from that for my own podcast. I have had a long journey. I won't go into every bit and pieces, of course, but I started out pretty much in the usual kind of standard way or stereotype of life. Like, I go through primary school, I pick up some trauma, then I go to secondary school, pick up some more trauma. Then I actually wanted to study computer science because I was quite a, you could say, school smart kid, like someone who was not necessarily the most intelligent, but I was driven and I could like get good grades, so I was high up in the Dutch, because I'm from the Netherlands for people listening. I was high up in the Dutch education system. So I decided, this was like 2017 probably, I wanted to study computer science. I had to go through a selection procedure, but I didn't get in. And I really set my hopes on that, so it was a big disappointment. However, a little bit before I discovered about entrepreneurship, I got into e-commerce, and it kind of was doing that on the side. Then I got into social media marketing, and this was kind of where my personal development / even spiritual journey kind of started, because I started to learn about the mind, I started to learn about mindset, about like your personal psychology, about your beliefs, about habits, all of this fun stuff. Then I actually had some success with my social media marketing agency at the time. I was making like 9,000 euros per month with it, around 6k on average, but my highest month was 9k, which I had twice. And then I decided to go traveling, because that's probably one of the most advertised success lifestyles. It's like you make money online and you travel the world. So that's exactly what I did. And on that journey, on that travel, I got exposed to so many different things than I had ever been in my hometown. One of those things was a book called Reality Transurfing, and that arguably changed my life forever. It really got me started with reality creation, and that got me started kind of with learning more about energy. So initially it wasn't really a spiritual journey for me. I didn't really value spirituality as much, but I did value creating my own reality and like creating a dream, my dream life essentially. So that's what got me started on this journey. And yeah, how I got to Jack's retreat, that's a good question. So after I did the social media marketing agency, I really did not like that, and I understood you could say the importance of energy in your work. So if you work with like very low energy, if you don't get excited by your work, if you cannot put excitement into your work, it's like it's never going to reach beyond a certain point. This is what I noticed with my agency. So I decided to put a stop to that, which was quite hard for me at the time. It was very emotional, because obviously, especially in the online business culture, everyone is like, consistency is the main thing. Like, you cannot quit. So I probably had postponed this decision for like 4 to 5 months even, before I finally had the courage to actually do it and follow my intuition and go for something else. That led me to personal branding, because this was like the business model where you can explore different topics, learn about different topics, and then teach your lessons to people behind you. That was kind of how I perceived it from Dan Co. People probably, especially if you're in this kind of space, will resonate with some of this stuff. But yeah, that's how I got into personal branding. I got started with watching Dan Coe YouTube videos. That led me to Jack, and then Jack started to get more spiritual. I started to get more spiritual, and I think that's kind of how these roads started connecting. And I was reading his emails. He talked about a retreat. I was like, damn, the money is not in my bank account right now, but that doesn't hold me back. So I set the goal of going to the retreat, and then like maybe a day later, maybe even a couple of minutes later, I'm not even kidding, like I asked my parents if they had the money like from their savings, which they had saved up for me, and they did, so I could go to the retreat. And then damn, that was like such a big reality shift. But yeah, that's kind of how I got here, man. The A to Z story so far.
Super cool. Did you get a free spot to Jack's retreat, or did I misinterpret something from?
No, you're correct. I did get a free spot, but I still had to pay the plane ticket.
Right. Yes. Of course. Yes.
Because this from the Netherlands is quite a big jump as well.
Big expense. Yeah. How old were you when you read? Was it Transurfing Reality or Reality Transurfing?
Yeah, Reality Transurfing. I was 19 years old. 19.
And you're 21 now?
I'm 21 now.
What were some of the biggest takeaways from that book for you, and how did you apply them to your life, and how are you still applying them?
Such a good question. I guess the main thing I've learned is that things are actually simple. The main thing is to not work against reality, but work with it. And moreover, I would actually change that to you should not interfere with reality or with yourself. And success is really just choice. That's pretty much what I took away and what I have been practicing since then. So what I mean is that if you decide on something, and it can be anything from like making a good meal to building a successful business, the only job you have, and I'm talking about like your job as like the actual identity slash non-identity, what you are, is just to choose and persist in your choice. And then everything else will fall into place because of something that a lot of people call different things, like a higher power, God. The script is also one. And that basically takes care of the path. So that's the biggest thing I learned, is like you don't need to do necessarily much. You don't need to control how you get there. You just need to choose it, stick to your choice, and then don't interfere with reality. And then everything will come alright. And that's what I've seen the past years with my life becoming true in so many different things, and like problems I was facing, even problems that I realized were not really problems. Because like another thing is like your mind doesn't like fears and uncertainties. Mm-hmm. So if you have a fear or you have an uncertainty and like you don't deal with that, then your mind is going to create problems to waste energy so it doesn't have to deal with the fear. And like the game is not in, for me at least, I've discovered the game is not so much to look at the past and look at the fears and look at the doubts and look at the worries and try and change those, because that's also a big energy waster. For me, what has been more effective is looking to the future, not looking back, and then as you move towards your goals, the obstacles will start falling away. So it's not really much worth looking at the things that hold you back. Sometimes it's worth, but it's mostly effective to just focus on the future and then move towards it. And it's really that simple. That's the main thing I've learned.
Yeah,
from
so
those books. You
mentioned kind of dealing with the fears and uncertainties. Is that how you would say that you deal with the fears and uncertainties? That the mind wants to kind of close and solve and fix and et cetera, et cetera? focusing on the future, focusing on your goals, focusing on the choices you can make in line with that path and that future.
Yeah, because like, let's say that you have the goal of a girlfriend, like meeting a girlfriend. If you don't focus on that goal, this fear is going to not appear. Because like, if you're just playing video games and not in the real world, meeting females, for example, like this fear is not gonna rise, you know. So strange, but you're not even gonna like be exposed to scenarios where the fear would be invoked. But if you set the goal of like, hey, I want to get a girlfriend, then it's like, oh, what do I have to do? For example, you go out to a city and then you see a female and you get a thought like, I should talk to this female. But then there comes the resistance. So that is kind of the fear. So really what I'm saying here is like, the fear only really comes out when you set the goal. So you set the goal for meeting a girlfriend, the fear comes from like, I don't want to speak to this girl, for example. And then how I usually perceive it is like, there's a couple of different things I use. The first thing is you just replace the fear with what is true. So an acronym that I've heard is like, fear just means false evidence appearing real. So like, if you think about a fear of poverty, then really just realize that true poverty is like not real, in the sense that you probably always have had enough money and you will be taken care of. So that is true. So in the example of the women is like, she will reject me. Well, that's a fear. So it's false evidence appearing real. So what's the truth then? Well, rejection is not really possible unless you personally allow it. So then there is no rejection. So then you just go towards the female. And I think the word female is just not appropriate, but it doesn't really matter. And then you just do it, man. That's, I think, the second technique is just doing it. Like, okay, there's resistance, but like the easiest way to overcome it is by not listening to it. That's the fastest way, I think. Those are like kind of the main points.
Yeah, identifying with what's true. So what is going on in your current reality that you're transurfing in some way? What resistances are popping up that you're faced with, and what choices are you making in light of those resistances?
Good question. Personal question. I love it. And also real question. So not like, you could say, philosophical, conceptual. The main thing for me is I wanted to move out, because I still live with my parents right now. And I realized that it wasn't really difficult for me to move out. There was just something holding me back. And something really personal I want to share is that for quite a long time I was kind of afraid of being on my own. And I realized that obviously if you are afraid of being alone and you currently live with other people, then your mind is going to block any entrances that are going to lead to you being on your own, because it doesn't want it. So what I realized is that was kind of a block that I hadn't been aware of. And it took a little bit of discovery to find out like what exactly it is, because I had been on my own before. I had traveled to the US to this retreat by my own. I had like gone to the shop, for example, or like slept on my own in a hotel. But the kind of thing that my mind really resisted was being seen as someone who's alone, because I was worried that I was going to be judged for being like weird or strange or even dirty in a sense, like someone who's not worthy. And then I realized the reason that is because I was judging other people who are exactly that. So this is kind of a bit of a personal psychology breakdown, but it might be helpful. Like I noticed that in my childhood, if there was like a kid eating lunch alone and I was with maybe one or two friends, because to be fair I didn't have a lot of friends, but even if I did have like two or one friend with me and there was someone else sitting by himself, then I would judge that kid. Oh, he's alone, he's probably a loser, he probably doesn't have any friends, he's probably unworthy. You see what I mean? And then I noticed that this kind of fear kept coming back in my life. So when I was on my own, I started to get thoughts like, if a girl walked by and I sat on my own, I got thoughts like, he's probably a weirdo. I should not say anything because like she might think I'm some form of creep. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I realized that was hiding underneath my brain. So I'm thinking that out and then replacing that. How I'm doing that, by the way, for people who are curious, is by stopping to judge other people. Because the root of the issue is that I first created it by judging other people, is what I think, as a hypothesis. So the way I'm solving it is just stopping to judge other people. That was quite a deep one.
Yeah, but that's like, it's just a projection of your own insecurities and fears onto other people. And really all judgment is self-judgment, which I've talked about in my newsletters before. And so when you're judging somebody else for being lonely or weird or whatever it is, you're just judging yourself at the same time. So how have you taken those learnings or even something else and kind of worked with your goals right now that you have to maybe go live on your own, to expand outside of the nest of the home, to kind of transcend, I don't know, kind of the current state that you're in right now?
Well, this is something which I recently discovered. But last week I just went out to a nearby city by myself, and I just spent like half of the day doing things my own. So going to a park, eating, going to the library, going to public transport, and just observing myself as I was on my own and seeing like what came up and trying to sort of reframe that, because I also believe that if you have a lot of experiences in your childhood or in your past that are like false evidence for a belief. So if you, for example, believe that you are poor, that you have no money, and you see evidence of the last 18 years that you have had little money, like it's a bit too much, I think, to try and reframe all of that to, oh my god, the belief was just holding me back, because there's so much evidence. What I think is also effective is finding new evidence as quickly as possible. So stop looking at the old, look at the new, look at the future. So for me, I think the main thing is not to try and reframe my childhood beliefs around being on my own and judging myself for that and judging other people, myself. I think the main thing is just letting go of that in the present and future. And I think that just happens automatically if I become aware of it when I'm put in situations that make the same thoughts and feelings arise, if that makes sense. Because another thing I heard is like that limiting beliefs are pretty much always in the process of leaving you if you allow them to, and if you stop holding on to them. So that's another thing which I said, like success is just a choice. You just have to choose it, and then the limiting beliefs will arise, and if you're aware enough to see them and stop holding on to them, then they will go, and then the path is cleared and you can safely walk to the goal, essentially. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. What choices are you making right now to manifest success or the reality that you want to live in?
What choices am I making right now?
Like, because you have the power of a decision, the power of choice to, I can choose to say that I'm successful right now. Let's say you have a goal or just a state that you are pursuing, or you have a vision towards. What choices are you making along with that path? Whether it's maybe what you're working on with school right now, which I'd be super curious to get into, or just everyday life, something of that nature. What kind of choices are you making to transcend and ascend?
I'm mostly always trying to choose whatever I feel I should do in that moment, if that makes sense. So it's maybe tricky to answer that, because I have a tendency to like look at like just the goal, and then whatever choices come up, I see them as like potential things that I shouldn't get too attached to. But on the other hand, I do think for me consistency is a good trait as well to keep my eyes focused on, and not just go about choice, goal, but also look a little bit to like, okay, where am I actually going right now? Because the thing with school, which I found, is that I started school because it was kind of intuitive. It was like, I almost felt like I should do something with school. Mm-hmm. Then I created a group. I wanted to cancel the group, to be fair, and then I got one paying member for like $100. But yeah, I didn't really have much inspiration, or you could say pull towards creating in school. But I started to realize that the reason I was attracted to school was because of the platform it is as a software platform. Because I had gotten started with building web applications and software applications a little bit before, like January this year, or last year even. What year is 2025? No, I guess January last year is when this year is when I started becoming quite invested in building software applications. Because once again, I wanted to study computer science when I left high school. So I realized that school was really just you could say a hint for the types of web apps I really admired and potentially would like to build. So then I started building my own apps, if that makes sense. So the kind of choices I make are quite intuitive, but I do try to see them in you could say like a general direction.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And you're 21 right now?
Correct.
What kind of things you touched on a little bit with the computer science, but what kind of things did you naturally, intuitively enjoy doing, and what were you naturally drawn to as a kid that you would do in your free time just out of the pure enjoyment and fun of it?
Definitely football. So I loved, and for American people, this is soccer. So where you actually kick the ball with your foot, essentially. That's what I really enjoyed as a kid. I was quite competitive in. Also drawing, which is something I picked up only in the last couple of months. And it was kind of like I had to kind of get started with it in the beginning, because otherwise I was like, oh, this is boring, blah blah blah, all of these like self-criticism started bubbling up. But then when I went through that, I realized I really enjoyed it, like actually drawing things, which I did as a kid. I also really played many different video games as a kid. I was always experimenting with computers as a kid as well. So like different softwares, trying to hack, like, how do you call it, like torrent video games, trying to create 3D models in something called Blender. People might be familiar with that, like a software where you can do computer graphics and stuff like this. And just fixing problems in general is what I really enjoyed. So if my dad had like an internet problem, or I had like a software problem, then I always enjoyed the process of fixing these things. And then I got like a little bit of a dopamine hit when I had fixed it, and then the next thing came up, and then the next thing came up. So I guess this is something which I realized is something which played out when I was a kid, that goes very well into the startup building / indie hacking world, which is just essentially building startups on your own. That's what indie hacking means. So yeah, man, that's kind of childhood things that lead me to picking choices right now.
Yeah, there's a term that pops up that I think really resonates for you, at least to me, and the first term was engineer, because you talked about how much you enjoyed fixing things, and you kind of have that kind of mindset of an engineer in a sense. But the better term, I think, is energy engineer, because something I noticed in the retreat is you have this incredible ability to wield energy to your will. Like you talked about the explosion of the aura field, which we'll get into. But human beings in general, one of the gifts that we have as conscious beings, largely conscious beings, with our brain, is the ability to wield energy at a significant level, both good and bad, and all across the spectrum. But particularly you stood out to me during the retreat with just your ability to wield energy. So I wonder what's inspiring your energy right now? Like, what are you kind of gravitating towards right now? You mentioned the computer software and stuff, but on like a day-to-day basis, when you wake up in the morning or you go to bed at night, kind of what are you thinking about? What inspires your energy right now?
That's a good question. I have recently been quite inspired by works of art, which I haven't really known why yet, but just anything from ancient paintings to like Leonardo da Vinci to like a lot of Dutch painters, because like the Netherlands is also quite famous for like the artists, so like Vincent van Gogh, Rembrandt, who has like a famous painting. People might know these things. I think it's like the Night Watcher in English. The Night Watcher. Yep. Do you know it?
Yeah, I went to what was the museum called in Amsterdam? But I saw there's
museum.
I think that's what it was. Yeah,
Rijksmuseum.
Yes, and there's a bunch of Rembrandt and a little bit of Van Gogh that I got to see as well. But there's a whole bunch of art there. Cool museum.
So yeah, definitely art has been on my radar, because I believe that art is just like a manifestation of creative energy in its purest form. Which is quite a technical definition. But yeah, I think that and then just building these apps I think is really fun, because what I realized recently as well is that I put too much pressure on myself for building these things. I saw them as too hard work, that it was too much effort, but really, like, it's amazing how fast you can actually build something nowadays with AI. Like, there's this app for people that are curious, Lovable. It's literally called lovable.dev, and it allows you to like create a prompt just as you would in ChatGPT. Like, you ask something to the AI, and then it is going to code an app for you in React, Vite, and you can also choose Express. So those are like frameworks. But you can literally ask the app Lovable to code a product, and then it will do it, and then within 2 minutes you have a code base that looks really good, and you can edit it. So if you have knowledge, like, you can build something in a day or even less. So that has been really inspirational.
So you're a vibe coder.
I don't know where that term came from, because I love the coding, but I'm not too engaged in like the social media stuff.
Yeah, that's just a new term that's popped up that I keep seeing around town, is vibe coding, which is basically what you described, just typing in something to an AI, protocol or software or whatever tool, and it creates the code base for you, but you just do it based off of vibes, and that's why they call it vibe coding. So that seems like what you're tapping into, which is very interesting, because I think that connects a lot of your natural abilities and your energy engineering capabilities, because you have the wisdom and the intelligence, and again, like the natural gifts to present energy and wield it very powerfully. And if you can do that through the quote-unquote vibe, to then code something that resonates with energy learnings or something, I don't know, some sort of app that teaches you to think, I don't know, but I feel like there's a lot of synergy there for you, which is very interesting. And one of the things we talked about on the way home from the retreat, which we talked about in the podcast that I went on with you, was the concept of the energy battery that fills up, that's always full, but we have the decision, the power to choose kind of what's filling the battery. And I'd love if you could share again what it is that takes up a lot of space, or what can take up a lot of space, even though we don't need it to, and how we can clear energy within that battery to open up space for the things that resonate and connect with us more.
Nice one, the energy battery. So that's also a model which I got from reality transurfing. It basically talks about that there are two kinds of energy. You have physical, that's like primarily through exercise, sleep, and nutrition. You take care of that. And then you have free energy. And this is kind of the spiritual energy. Also, people call this life force, key energy. There's probably other terms for it as well. But that's the main energy to focus on, because you can be physically well, physically healthy, but if you're not emotionally healthy, like you don't have a lot of free energy, then you're going to be quite depressed about life. You're not going to have inspiration or excitement, which I think is very key in life. Mm-hmm. So there's three main things I have observed that make up your free energy, because really free energy always flows if everything is uninterrupted. So I'm also talking about the body. There are like certain theories about the body's free energy flow being constricted by toxins, so like by toxic substances in the air, in the food, in the water, and these, if they are in excess in the body, and this is just a theory by the way, then they could restrict free energy flow. So it also has a physical impact. But the main three metaphysical aspects of free energy are, first of all, your limiting beliefs. So as we just talked about, like your limitations are not just limitations, but they literally take up energy. So when you say to yourself, for example, like there's not enough money, or making money is hard, what you're actually doing is putting an energetic block on yourself to keep you in this frequency of making money is hard. As soon as you let go of it, the free energy is like freed up. That probably makes sense. The free energy is freed up, and your energy increases, and you start seeing the options that allow you to actually make money easily. So your limiting beliefs take up energy. When you let go of them, you will feel energy increase. The second one is your promises and unrealized intentions. So what I mean with this is things you have said you are going to do, or things you have planned to do, things you have planned to achieve, but haven't yet achieved. This applies to goals as well. So if you set 10 goals or 20 goals, and you seriously mean it, you will feel your energy go down, because you allocate mental energy to things that haven't been achieved. So it's almost like you have to hold on to them like a computer. You have to store them until they are achieved. So look at what you have promised people to do. Like if you promise your dad something and you haven't done it, it takes up energy. If you promise yourself something, it takes up energy. This is why people who plan so much probably procrastinate so much as well, because there's just not enough energy for the action. Because they plan so many different things, like next week I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to email this client, and I'm going to, I don't know, read this book. Like if you plan it, then that planning, that kind of instruction takes up energy. So clearing that up is a very useful practice. Just writing down what you have promised to yourself or others, and doing it or eliminating it. And what is another one that I had? Probably
the third metaphysical way.
Yeah, the third metaphysical way. So I covered the limitations or limiting beliefs. I covered the one second.
I don't think you said it in the car ride, did you? Did you say it on the podcast that we were on?
It just completely blanked out, man.
Well, maybe it'll come back. I did want to talk about as I recently mentioned, was just a aura explosion. I don't know what the proper term is, but we were on our hike, our mushroom journey hike, on the Friday of the retreat, and we're hanging around on the ridge line there, having a good time chatting, and you decided to pop a squat on this little bench kind of face towards us and start sharing some of your brilliant insights and pieces of wisdom that you've picked up. But then you share this exercise to, again, I don't know the proper term, but to explode the field around you. So if you could walk us through that exercise, and we could do it right now, me, myself, you, yourself, and for anybody else listening as well. We just explode the cosmos.
I love it, man. I love as well that you took that away from the retreat. Yeah, that was just something random which popped up and then turns up to be something valuable or interesting. So this is maybe also a good reminder for people. Like, it doesn't really matter what you think is useful or not, or necessary or not, because things might play out in a different way than you expected. Anyway,
Yeah.
This technique I got from another book from the author of Reality Transurfing. So this is a Russian guy,
Interesting.
and I translated some of his books because they're good. So what you do is you essentially, well, the kind of technique I use myself, maybe that's interesting for people, is I like stand up, but you can also sit down, you can lie down, it doesn't really matter. You lift up your hands and you put them on top of your shoulders, so you're almost like flexing your biceps, but you're not flexing your muscles, you're just being quite loose. That's important, because you don't want to tense like your muscles too much. Then what you do is you take a big breath in, and on the exhale what you do is you almost like...
You breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth? What's the process?
Well, you can do
Into the
both, but the intention of this exercise is quite important. That's what it's about. The intention of
Gotcha.
this exercise is to clear your energy field, and you can do that as far as possible. You can also like pretend that you're sending energy to people. You can pretend that you're sending love to people. Like, you can imagine what kind of intention you want to set. What I do myself is I use this to clear my energy. So I stand up, breathe in through the nose, put your hands on your shoulders, relaxed. Take a big breath in through the nose, and then as you exhale through the nose, you focus your attention, basically your awareness, you concentrate on a explosion that goes from your shoulders outwards. So like you breathe in, and then as you exhale, focus as if there was like a huge explosion blasting from the shoulders out, and as you do that, you slap your arms down. So it's like, you see? Yeah, almost like you blow with your breath the energetic blocks away surrounding you. So like, and then I have noticed, not only in the short term but also in the long term, this can actually remove blocks. So this author of this exercise, once again, it's Vadim Zeland, if you're curious, he claims that this exercise is capable of removing these energetic blocks. Also meaning, because the limiting beliefs were energetic blocks, like we just discussed, the limitations were energetic blocks, the unrealized intentions were energy blocks. Like, it also means that just by doing this exercise, you are able to release limiting beliefs, you're able to release unrealized promises you didn't even know you made. So it's a very useful exercise, very useful. But yeah, on the retreat it was kind of a different one, to be honest. It was more around exploding your energy, and that was much easier. That was just like, you take a breath in, and then as you take a breath out, you do the same thing. You breathe out quite intensely, but you imagine that you are exploding your energy as far as you want. So you can do it like 10 meters, 10 yards, whatever metric system you use. You can do it 10 kilometers. And if you imagine that you're doing it 10 kilometers, then you will feel the effects bigger. If you imagine that you're doing the entire US, then you will feel the effect of doing the entire US. Doesn't really matter whether it works or not on the entire US, but it's just about using your imagination to, I don't know, like send out energy, send out love, whatever makes you feel good.
Yeah, and if you believe it works, then it does. And I remember vividly where I was sitting on the ridge facing you, probably 8 or 9 feet from you, on your right, and you started in the field of just kind of your local space, maybe within a foot or two from you, from your shoulders, and then I think you expanded out to the wider area that we were, the piece of nature, and then you went to maybe the city, but then you did Texas, and when you did Texas, you did the strong inhale and the strong exhale through the nose, and I swear I felt the state of Texas explode, and as I said that, the window behind me just opened up, like literally just crashed open. I literally felt the state of Texas explode from your energy field, and I'm sitting there on mushrooms. You weren't even on mushrooms. I'm like, Jack, I think, said something like, "You're super powerful." I was like, "Yeah, super powerful." And I just remember that feeling of being like imploded by energy. And it was so powerful. It stuck with me. That's why I wanted to talk about it further today. But yeah, you can do that with whatever. You can send energy, send love, send peace, send whatever it is. Send freedom, let go of things. That's an awesome practice. I wanted to get into your Italy adventures because you just got back, and I was super excited to see you make it out there. Tell me about some fun stories or happenings or excursions, learnings, developments, anything that popped up in your time there. Kind of, walk me through the how you got there part, where you stayed, and maybe some of the intentions behind it as well, and anything else that you feel like sharing.
That's good, man. I love as well how personal this is. Because, for the podcast episode I've personally recorded, I always try to keep it quite, you could say, like, almost course-like, so like education-like. But really, what I think is also valuable, just pointing this out right now, is like actually the personal stories and personal experiences that just by me telling them probably reveal some of these education things. So that's nice, man. I like that. I got there purely through intuition. I started picking up on signs to go to Italy. I actually booked to the south of Italy, like Sicily, if people are familiar. But then I started to really notice many like things happening in my life to do with winter sport, so like skiing, and I decided, okay, we're going to cancel the south and we're going to go to a skiing area. And when I say we, I'm actually meaning myself. I booked a hotel on booking.com, just one which I felt good about, and I do quite a lot of things with intuition, if you haven't noticed. And it's funny because the hotel was actually called Harmony Suite Hotel, and I love transurfing. I've talked about it quite a lot, but there's this principle from transurfing that is called Sweet Harmony, and this is basically where you kind of say this to yourself as a statement that everything is well, all is good, all is love, like just kind of a good state. And that's what I have used quite a lot myself. So then I saw this hotel, like, it's Harmony Suite Hotel, and I was like, damn, this is the hotel I should go to. So as I got closer to the date of going to the hotel, my dad wanted to go with me. So I was like, okay, could be potentially something fun, because I wanted to go skiing, and I was like, maybe by myself, especially also since we talked about the blocks I had around being alone, which I hadn't fully discovered at that point. I was like, okay, then it might be a good idea if he comes. So we fly out to Bergamo. This is the town in Italy that we stayed close to. We stayed in a different town, which was called Salvino. And when we arrived, this was just such a cool place. Like, there were all of these love signs, literally with lights, and it was beautiful. It was small, there were mountains, and it was literally, I'm staying in this Sweet Harmony hotel, so I was literally feeling like I was put in this scene, this movie of just love. And I really needed that, to be honest, because the periods before the vacation were quite stressful. So I really felt like this was just an orchestrated vacation for me from life. So I was really, really happy about that. I wanted to go skiing. I wanted to go on winter sport, but when we got there was like almost no snow, which was quite funny. So really the vacation ended up being more about hiking. So actually walking through mountain trails, seeing absolutely beautiful views, because I live in the Netherlands, and for people who don't know, it's flat.
Yeah.
It's like completely flat. So then seeing mountains, height difference is fun from time to time. So that was amazing. Also, I ate a lot of Italian food, and Italians have such a good but not really that diverse diet. So they eat like pizza 3 times a week. They eat like lots of pasta, of cheese, stuff like this. So that was great. I had spent quite a lot of time focusing on my nutrition before this vacation. So making sure I was eating good foods, making sure I was eating the right amounts, like all of these things. And I felt that was a little bit too much. So then going out to Italy and just eating pizza, ordering every day is like, that was also so nice, man. Even if it's not the most healthy thing, because people are like, oh, it's probably not healthy. Of course it's not healthy. Like pizza, ice cream. I also ate plenty of fruit, by the way. But it was great, because it really allowed me to let go of needing to have like perfectly healthy diet and focus on it so much, and it really allowed me to focus on other things. And I used much of this vacation to return one thing, which is the power of gratitude. And that has been probably the biggest takeaway from that holiday for me, is realizing how powerful gratitude is. Like just being thankful for what you have. If you're working towards something, this is what I learned myself to kind of go out of teaching mode into experience mode, is like I discovered I wanted to go towards my goals so badly that I stopped being grateful for my present. As soon as I got grateful for my present, my life improved in pretty much every single direction, because I stopped focusing on what I didn't have right now, but I started focusing on what I was grateful to have right now. And that meant I was just getting more of what I was already grateful for. It was just like this positive feedback loop of love and gratitude during this vacation. So that was so amazing, man. I'm so blessed to have followed my intuition to go to Italy. Enjoyed much great food, enjoyed much great views, much great nature, and I really rested and relaxed. So it was a really great holiday, man. Really great holiday.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. When you're already thankful for what you have, abundance finds you even more so. That's really awesome. I was wondering, did you end up getting those flowers for your mom after the retreat?
That's a good question. I did not get her flowers. Instead, I got her something else. I think. So I thought I wanted to get her flowers in the Netherlands, but then I was at the airport in London, where I arrived, and I had like 6 hours to like spend there because my flight was so much later. So I was just walking throughout these shops, and she really liked jam. So like, I don't even know what it's called.
Jelly jam.
Sugary, sugary jelly jam. So I found this like shop which had like all of these different tastes of jams, or I got her like I think blueberry jam, which he really liked because he eats jam every morning. And I got my dad a chocolate bar as well. So I was like, damn, mom, dad, here you go. I'm grateful for you. This is what I bought. And then that really felt good, man. So yeah, that's what I got them.
That's awesome. I'm super glad to hear that as well. I had a question that popped up in preparation for this conversation. I was wondering, what do you feel, what does your heart feel like you've been called to do or express here in this lifetime? Whether it's a super small thing today or grand vision across your whole lifetime or something in between.
Good question. Very good questions, Mr. Cole. So short term, living in Italy. So like I talked about this before you started the recording. Like my goal right now is to buy a villa in Italy. That's like you could say short term, but I don't really mind what short term means. Whether it's like a few years, maybe more. And then long term, what I've been seeing in my reality, because many of these things are not personally found for me through deep introspection, but it's more about going through life and seeing what sticks out and why, has been the transport industry. So like as a global kind of general direction of the world, I think that potentially I could be playing a role in transforming the way that we transport goods and maybe people. And the reason I'm thinking this is long term is because it doesn't necessarily make clear sense right now to me why this sticks out, but it does. So I feel like this is something I am becoming aware of for a reason. And since I also just enjoy getting getting things to people, so it's strange, but when we were at the retreat, I talked about the fact that everyone kind of had a role when we came in. So like people were going to prepare the food, others were going to, I don't know, like drag out the things from the cars or like clean up the space. I don't remember exactly what we did, but I realized myself that I really had fulfillment from getting things to people. So whether it's like an item from one person to the other, just like getting that to them and then doing it fast. So like, here you go. For some reason that just gave me a feeling of fulfillment. So I feel like that aspect of life could be part of a long-term vision or goal or journey, whatever. Those are some things I have thought about in this regard.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm super curious to see how that develops and plays out. Because it's cool to have those things where you can kind of see that it could definitely be a part of the path, but it's not super clear in how that develops or manifests. And transportation is, I think, an industry that's going to continue to be creatively destroyed and innovated, as they say. A lot of new innovations are coming up that way and will be over the next 50 plus years. So that's very interesting. What are your plans for Italy in the coming weeks, months? Do you have a timeline that you're envisioning there? What's kind of your roadmap to Italy?
Good question. I don't have a timeline for the simple reason that I just focus on the goal and try to let go of everything else. But I do keep my eyes open on what potentially can lead me there, because I don't know how the goal will be achieved yet. Like some might say that it's just about making the money, but I would say even if I would meet like an Italian woman and she has this villa already, then technically the goal could be achieved through that. So it's like I don't really care how it's achieved. I'm just keeping it in mind, seeing what unfolds. And in the short term, I don't know if I want to live in Italy myself right now. Like I don't know if I would want that. if I feel that is a right decision, I would take it. But I don't know. It's like things are just unfolding quite at a good pace right now. That it's a bit strange, but that's kind of the way in which I try and achieve goals, is just by focusing on the end goal and not necessarily trying to make plans about the steps.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope that sort of makes sense.
No, it does, and it's the same. It's very similar to how I've approached decisions and things of that nature. Like, it's just really a resonant frequency that once it resonates, once there's a frequency that resonates, like moving to Austin, for example. People ask me, like, why are you moving to Austin? The answer I gave was, like, the call of the universe. It's just because that's what resonated within me to move there. It's not like, I made a decision necessarily. Just things kept unfolding and it resonated to the point where I was like, all right, that's what I'm doing now. Same thing for coaching basketball. It was like, you can kind of pose the question to your heart, which is the place of resonance, truth and love, and if it resonates, you'll feel it. And there's a term, I believe in Hinduism, it's called like Shanti something, and it means the eye of the heart, because you have right brain, left brain, and so you can go back and forth all day about a decision in your brain, right side, left side, yes, no, right, wrong, whatever, but there's a single eye of the heart where you can direct energy to see if it resonates, and resonance is truthful, and it's kind of like a yes, and you'll know pretty much right away whether it does or doesn't. So I would say, yeah, that's I think that's the resonant way to approach it, is not to box it into a timeline or definitely just see how God plays the cards for you, and it'll be perfect as they're played. I was curious to get your answer to this question, because I think there's a lot of benefits that can come from your answer and your wisdom. What are some of your best learnings over your journey, over your recent journey? I know we've mentioned a few of them. Best learnings in general. What pops up to you? It could be about energy. It could be about reading. It could be about family, living, whatever.
Best learnings. Life is spiritual. So that's, for me, like the main thing that plays into anything else. Balance is also huge. Balance in everything. Balance in like what you do in life. Like, not, for me at least, not focusing on just work or just relationships or just exercise. But I love a balanced life. Balance in your emotions. So when you feel balanced, when you're not suffering from stress or anxiety or excessive pride, then you're in like a balanced emotional state, like no charge, as you would probably say. I think that is a really big one for people to start to develop and look at their life. It's like, where are you out of balance and why, and how can you get back to balance? So yeah, life is spiritual, balance, huge one.
What does life is spiritual mean to you? Like, how would you break that down? Like, what does that mean, life is spiritual?
That's a good question as well.
And what's the significance of it? Because it was the first thing you said.
What I mean is, my worldview, maybe the first one is actually, even before life is spiritual, is like, go your own way, make your own decisions, and listen to your own heart. Because even if you don't believe life is spiritual right now, then don't just accept that from me. You have to, or you can develop these things on your own. The main thing is just staying true to what you yourself believe, and trying to be as independent as possible, because everyone is just doing what they think they should be doing. No one knows 100% what is real, how reality works, even what is real, like stuff like this. We're all just making assumptions, about life truly, because we are living it, so we cannot like say that we are the absolute truth, if that makes sense. So even before life is spiritual, I would say like just follow yourself. And then when I say life is spiritual, I mean like it's a difficult one. You could say that the way to see life for me is from a spiritual standpoint. So when I see a problem, I don't try to like solve it with reason or with like 3D techniques, if that makes sense, or sounds maybe a bit crazy. But I try to look at the truth. So maybe an interesting point about consciousness, because I believe that life consists out of one substance, which is like energy, consciousness. People call this different things, but it essentially points to the same essence, which is energy or consciousness. And I believe a fundamental property of consciousness is rising above. I believe that that is what consciousness is. So what I personally have found is like whenever there's something in your life out of alignment, it's probably due to out of alignment of consciousness, because you're not rising above the situation enough to see what's clearly happening. Maybe a quick example is like if you're emotional about something, it's almost always that you don't see what's actually going on. Like if you hate someone, like for example, my mom doesn't have like a very good relationship with the neighbors, so she's quite emotional about them, and that means she isn't really seeing what's actually going on, but just what her emotions make her believe is going on.
Yeah.
So when I say life is spiritual, I mean like the solution to your problems, even to your goals, to your desires, to your purpose. It's nothing with like reality itself. It's nothing for you to figure out. It's just for you to become aware of. I think life is just one general, you could say, dream that the goal is to awaken from. And the faster you can do that, the faster you can probably realize your full potential as this incarnation or being or person in this life. That's at least how I perceive reality, how I perceive my life. So once again, I would say the main thing is make up your own mind. That is going to probably set you back in the beginning, to be fair, because it did for me. But I'm so grateful that I stopped following others and started listening to myself and made the decision to go my own way and follow my own heart, because that is going to lead me and has led me to amazing things, and it will do the same for you. I'm really certain of it, for someone who's listening, for your call, for everyone, I think.
For God. What do you mean it set you back in the beginning?
Well, I was quite, you could say, I think I mentioned this in the Telegram group we're in, like quite attached to validation from other people. So if there was like a certain technique, I was like, how does this person do it? I was also always buying courses, always listening to advice. So suddenly going my own way is like, okay, he uses this technique, but then now what do I personally think? Like, what is my own way? And I was like, I don't really know. Is this really my own way? So all of these doubts start coming up. Mm-hmm. Because let's say that you, just like the dog example we talked about previously, let's say that you are like a kid walking with your mom throughout life, and then suddenly she lets go of you, and now you're on your own. In the beginning you're like, what is going on here? Like falling out of balance. You're like, damn, I have to do everything on my own. It's kind of crazy mode. But then as you start to get more comfortable with this independence, you become stronger through it.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So that's what I mean. Setting but to be honest, like setting back is maybe not the right term, because it's like a perception that I was set back, but like setting back even, is that really Is that really true? Is that really a thing? Does that make sense?
It's always a progression, but sometimes you got to go down to go up. So it's a progression in the sense that you went down to then go up, and to go along the line of progression, you again went down, but it was still, because you went down, that's the progress that led you to going up. So the whole thing was progress the whole time. Yeah, I've definitely gone through that, or just like new learnings or new insights or new energies popping up, and you kind of feels like, even recently, the past few weeks, new learnings, and it's like new territory, such that you're like floating in the abyss and you're almost looking for something to grab onto, but because it's completely new and fresh, you are just floating, and you kind of just like settle, and the waters start calming a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. It's all in the divine progression of things. So you said the purpose of consciousness, or kind of the purpose of life, is to kind of awaken from the dream. What does it look like to awaken from the dream?
What does it look like to awaken from the dream? It's a realization, man. It's like you cannot, and I've talked about this before in a YouTube video, which I think is one of my best YouTube videos. It's like the difference between knowledge and insight. It's like an insight is something that cannot be grasped in words. It's something that is beyond the constraints of logic, of abstract thinking. So when I talk about awakening from the dream, it's not something you can conceptualize or use. You cannot use your mind to awaken. You can only use your mind to set the intention to awaken, but the actual awakening itself is abstract. Like people talk about becoming present, but you cannot like define the action of presence in words. You actually have to do it. You actually have to become present. So awakening in the dream for people is really just about becoming aware, and becoming aware is like, there are techniques to do it, but the actual act of it cannot be described. It can only be executed, only be done.
Yeah, it's moving past the concepts of the universe, and just like the state of enlightenment is like, that's it's an ineffable state, you know.
I like that.
It's just like it's beyond all imaginations and concepts and words and thoughts and descriptions and interpretations, you know. It's just is, and maybe you awaken to the dream in that sense. You mentioned one thing during the retreat that stuck out to me as well, in that usually people have something, maybe early on, maybe later in life, everyone's journey is unique, but usually people have things that feel like their largest obstacle, but then end up being their largest accelerator for growth, or that thing ends up being kind of their superpower, was the word I believe you used. What, maybe in your life, maybe it hasn't happened, maybe it has, I'm not sure, but what kind of obstacles have you transcended into your superpowers, or what do you think could be your superpowers in light of the obstacles?
Good point. I've actually started to question this lately, because I always thought that I was not good with people. Oh no, never mind. I actually, let me rephrase the past 10 seconds. What I realized is that I always seek validation from people quite strongly, and I thought as an obstacle that could be an inverse superpower of someone who is very independent. But not just that. but really I started seeing myself as someone who could potentially be a leader, because I had never thought about myself being a leader. But as soon as I started to question this obstacle, I was like, I've always been running away from people in this sense, even socially, with like social awkwardism in high school. But what if I like actually went towards people? And then I started thinking about leader. That came to me. I was like, I've never really seen myself as a leader, but when I thought about it, it felt good. And I think one of the reasons that it didn't stand out to me was because I had this certain stereotype of a leader, like someone who is dominant, aggressive, like above someone. But when I was like 18 years old, I was in a football team, and I was the captain for the first time, and I really always wanted to secretly be the captain of the team. And this was the first time I actually was the captain. But the main difference between like that period and how I perceived other captains was that I was a very quiet captain. So I was like someone who like didn't say much, like wasn't constantly, you should do this or you should pass the ball, or what are you doing, move up. Like I wasn't doing that. I was really just calmly coordinating the team. And that felt really good to me. So I noticed that potentially the kind of obstacles I personally thought were obstacles in my childhood could potentially manifest into me being a really successful, quiet, non-invasive, non-aggressive leader. I guess that's potentially a main one which I've found recently.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember we were sitting outside on the balcony, and this is when I saw you as Dumbledore, and Dumbledore sits on that kind of higher up, I don't know, whatever you would call it, panel almost, in front of the room in Harry Potter, and he's a leader in that sense. And you had that same type of energy to you then, but it wasn't like, as you said, like super demanding or vocal. It was just a presence that was there. And there's different ways to lead, as you mentioned, leading by example. But I think you have that power, and I think you're way more socially comfortable than perhaps you think, because whenever you were around socially, like I felt comfortable in your presence, but also enjoyed your presence as well. And I think you had a natural presence to you and a natural intellect. So I don't think you have to do anything to tap into that. I think that's already your nature as is. But we'll close it there. Really enjoy the conversation. Is there anything else that speaks to your heart right now that you feel like sharing before we close?
Okay, it's maybe cliche, but trust that everything is working out. Because I believe that even if you are struggling so hard, even if things are super bad, I believe there is some kind of like good power of God or the world or whatever that is always carrying you, always helping you, always assisting you. So you don't have to worry, just relax, everything will play out, there's no need to rush, and then life will be an amazing journey. That's kind of the main thing I want to share with people.
Spot on, yeah. I don't know if you remember, but that's pretty much the same thing that I said at the end of the podcast I was on with you about a month ago. Like pretty much the exact same.
It's crazy that you remember that. I don't remember it.
Trust in God and the universe. It's all conspired in your favor. Where can the people find you online? I know you're out in the Netherlands in the 3D physical world, but where can they reach you if they want to?
Yeah, I won't disclose my residence address, but I upload quite some videos on YouTube. Yes. So people can find me on my YouTube channel. It's just the same as my name, Guus and Rees. People can find me on X. I love to like broadcast my thoughts, broadcast lessons. I have an email newsletter which is linked to X. I guess those are the main two platforms. Also, I am currently building like a product. I will be launching that probably on X as well, So if you're curious, you can check it out there. I'm sure that Cole probably put them in the description.
Yes, sir.
That's right. I can be found.
Awesome, yeah. Enjoyed your time as always, Guus, and I'm sure the listeners have as well. We will catch up soon. I'm sure we'll stay in touch, and we will catch you on the flippity flip. Until next time, send them peace and love.